So now, without further ado, our Utah connection, Mr. Dan Johnson and Nate Broderick.
Thank you very much. I'm a wanderer, so you don't know where I'm going to pop up as we go through. Again, introduction, my name is Dan Johnson, so those, and in the program I'm not mentioned, so those groupies that are here to hear Nate, you'll have to wait just a little bit longer for him to be there. When Nate came to me a few months ago and said, you know, it'd be an interesting situation to have a manager give a little bit of the presentation about SLAs and see it from a management point of view rather than just a techie point of view. Well, I lived here in the Midwest for a number of years, and I used to love October because in October, because of the ethnic background of many of the people that settled this area, you have Oktoberfest. In these little communities, they're great, it's a fun time. I'm a teetotaler, but I love the food, I love the camaraderie, I love the party. So I said, sure, Nate, it'll be great. We'll have some fun at Oktoberfest. Then I did a little bit of research on Oktoberfest. That should work. Oktoberfest in St. Paul, and I found out that it actually went from 6 o'clock to 11 o'clock on September 20th and 21st. So much for Oktoberfest. We're AI Vector. We're a small company about an hour's drive from Salt Lake City. We've been in the monitoring industry for about 15 years. So we're not new at it, and we have a lot of experience. And we're going to talk about a topic today that can be a little bit controversial. I'm going to be referring to techies and managers during my presentation. So what we need to do is we need to get a definition. If you're looking at this and you're saying, what in the world does an old refrigerator have to do with SLA? You're a manager. If you're looking at this and saying, tell me the IP, if I can monitor it, if I can ping it, I can monitor it, you're a techie. So there's a difference between the approach that each one of these people take in looking at SLA. Now, why a refrigerator? Okay, my dad used to say, get me a drink out of the Frigidaire. Okay, I was 12 years old before I realized that you could buy an appliance, a piece of furniture, or even a tool anywhere except Sears and Roebuck. In our house, we had all Sears stuff. So in my dad's lifetime, he never had a Frigidaire. But when he would say, go get a drink out of the Frigidaire, I understood what he meant. Well, SLA has kind of morphed into one of those types of words. Here is a partial list of the things that people commonly refer to as SLA. If you have 5 people in a room and you say, give me a definition of an SLA, you'll get 7 different definitions that come out of the room. This partial list kind of gives you an idea of some of the ones. You can add as many as you want. Now, we need to also understand, I don't want to get into a situation that I had when I went to an econ class back in the Stone Age when I was in college. The professor was brand new, and he was just starting to teach. I went to a regional college in Utah, Brigham Young University. So we had people from all over the world, in fact, all over the country. But we had a large number of Idaho students. So this professor decided, he said, I want to make this relevant. So in the first class, after the introduction, he proposed this scenario. He said, if you take a look at the sales of Idaho potatoes in New York, there's an overwhelming ratio that are number 1 potatoes that are sold over number 2s. But if you look at the sales of potatoes in Idaho, there's a huge, overwhelming ratio of number 2 potatoes sold over number 1s. And he said, why is that? Well, for the next 20 minutes, we heard things like the effectiveness of organic fertilizer on the product. We heard the price of bearing grease on the tires of a tractor. In other words, we came up with a bunch of stuff. Finally, after about 15 minutes, he says, well, now, it costs the same amount of money to ship a number 2 potato to New York as it does a number 1. So when you get to New York and you look at the price differential between the number 1s and the number 2s, it doesn't make economic sense to buy a number 2 because the number 1s are only a few pennies more. Whereas in Idaho, you can buy number 2 potatoes, cut out the portions that you don't want, and you'll still get a higher yield per penny on the product buying number 2s. Made sense to me. But then what happened is we got into the yeah buts. Yeah, but you're not considering this. Yeah, but you're not considering that. Yeah, but you're not considering this. And for the next half hour, everybody complained that he wasn't considering certain things that they felt made a difference in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a non-IT example to kind of talk about our SLA. So you get the feel for the philosophy that we're talking about. This is my family. This son and his 3 kids and wife live in Louisville, Kentucky. He's an attorney in that area, very well established. He ain't coming home. This is his young brother. He and his 2 daughters and his wife are in Middlesboro, Kentucky. He's going to medical school. So he's gone for 8 years. So we're in a situation where, and by the way, this is my beautiful wife here. We've been married, we've been married for 42 years. So you can tell I'm a great salesman if I'm able to figure out how she will stay with me for 42 years. I'm very lucky. But what we have is 62.500% of her grandkids are in Kentucky, and we live in Utah. All right, now I know there are individuals in here who have responsibility for e-commerce accounts, where thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour are at risk if you're down through lack of revenue. I understand that, and I understand the pressure that you've got to be under. It's almost unbearable. But your critical application is nothing compared to what my critical application is. When my wife decides she's going to go to Kentucky, it's get grandma to the airport. I mean, that is it. If I want to stay married 43 years, I got to get grandma to the airport. Now, we had a systems crash. Our main car is in the shop. It literally had a crash, so we can't use it. So we're down to 1 car. We're down to my runaround car, which is a Honda 2005. It has 115,268.738 miles on it. I drove freeway miles last year of 6,812 miles, 12.951. Okay, I see some of you kind of smirking when I'm taking this thing out to 3 decimal places. You're kind of saying, what's all that about? If I'm a manager and I'm saying to you, I want 5 nines, you're asking me to go out 5 decimal place precision on what is happening with my system. Okay? Problem is, the input that you have has to have that same type of precision. It doesn't work when you say, I want 5 nines. Oh, by the way, my system was down about 15 or 20 minutes. No, don't hold me to 5 nines when you're telling me it was down about 15 or 20 minutes. You got to have the precision that's there. So let's take a look at this car in the last 24-hour statistics. We had an oil change and lube job and 100,000-mile maintenance. A tire blew out, and I had to fix it. We checked, the check engine light came on. I drove into a mechanic, and he found out there was a loose wire. So if I calculate my SLA on this, it's 89.351. I made a huge mistake. In preparing for this class, I printed off a bunch of articles and I left them around the house. And my wife picked them up and read them. And from her research, she's come to a conclusion of the reliability of my car. And she has been told that if we don't have 5 nines, the consequences will be biblical in nature. In fact, she is convinced that if we don't have 5 nines, we're going to run into the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse on the way to the airport, and we're all going to die. Does that sound like some of your managers who come and basically say, I don't understand this SLA stuff. I don't know what you're talking about, but you better have 5 nines. Doesn't work. All right, so what am I going to do to stay married 43 years? I'm going to look at this, and the first thing I'm going to say is, but dear, we can't look at just 24 hours. That's an anomaly. The data doesn't really represent what's going on. So let's go back and look at 7 days and see what the data looks like on that. Now, I can't go back more than 9 days because my car had a catastrophic issue on it for a full month. And if I go back any further than 7 days on my SLA, it will stink. Okay, so I got to be careful. So I pick 7 days because it's a good, convenient number. Then I'm going to come in here and say, but dear, this is a warning light. The car was running. It was working. Granted, it was operating out of the standard that we have established, or that Honda established, and they're trying to tell us that if you don't take care of this, if you don't do something about it, you're going to have a big problem. But dear, technically it was still running, so that shouldn't count against my SLA. I'm not there yet, so I say now, dear, we knew that we were going to be bringing down the car for maintenance. We knew that we were going to have all of this going on. Even though I couldn't get to it, even though if I had to use it, I couldn't have used it, it was a scheduled downtime. Yeah, the system was down, but it was scheduled. So that shouldn't count against my SLA. Well, I'm not at 5 nines yet. So what am I going to do? Well, I am restoring a 67 Ford Mustang. Beautiful car. Interior is almost immaculate. Mechanically, it's a piece of junk, but the car is really nice. It's always torn apart. It's my hobby. I go and that's how I unwind and do things. And last week, I had to put the engine together because I had to test a component. So I put the engine together and I started it. And it ran for 2.513 minutes. But if I had left it running, it would have gone the whole 1440. It would have worked the whole day. So I'm going to count that as a full day that's there. Now, unfortunately, the next day I tore it down. So I only have 1 day that I can use. And if I look at that and I say, oh no, if I include that in my SLA, what's going to happen? It's going to even look worse. But if I spend $995 on a rebuild engine, I can gain the same reliability in the Ford as I did in the Honda. Okay, some of you who have done cars are looking at it and saying $995. Yeah, right. You can't get it for $995. The engine I want is $2,800. But what I'm going to do is when we get closer to the purchase date, I'm going to put in a change order. And I'm going to justify to my wife why we spend $2,800. This is just introducing the concept so that I can give the change order and get the one that I want. I'll get it. So I'm looking at this, and if I consider this a full failover system, I'm at 5 nines. My wife loves me. I'm good looking. Everything in the world is great. But now I have a situation. I need your help. Is there anyone out there that knows of any literature that is suggesting more than 5 nines as the standard that we should use? Because I got to rebuild a transmission. And I figure quickly That's going to take about 12 nines to justify that to my wife. So if you hear of anything, please let me know. All right. Hopefully you understand the principles that we're talking about. Let's talk about some things. You say you're at 5 nines. My reaction is going to be great. First question I'm going to ask is, over what period of time? Did you pick the right period of time? What period of time is it? I'm going to ask you, what's your check interval? For those that may not know what check interval is, like a 515, I'm looking every 5 minutes. If there's not a change in status, I look next 5 minutes, 5 minutes. If there's a change in status, I say, oops, I got a problem. I'm going to wait a minute, and I'm going to look again. I'm going to say, oops, I got a problem. I'm going to wait a minute and look again. And I'm going to do that for 5 times until I say, yep, I really got a problem. The 1 minutes are soft errors. The 5 minutes hard error. Okay? So now I ask the question, do you include soft, hard, or both in your calculation? If I have a 10-1-10, for example, I could go 19 minutes with the system totally, absolutely down, but if I fixed it before the time started, I got 15 minutes, 20 minutes, my system being totally down, but I still have 100% SLA. Because I don't count the soft ones. Okay? Next question I'd ask is, what's your exclusion list? Do you exclude a scheduled downtime? What do you exclude off your list? Now, there may be a valid reason why you're doing it, but tell me what it is so that I understand the data. I understand what's going on. Do you use an average or probability method for calculating your SLA? Average is very simple, add it up, divide it by the number of nodes. It's a little more complicated in the probability, but in essence what you do is you use a product, or you is a factor, and you multiply them together and come up with the probability that the system is going to be up. That leads us to this real question. Really, what is the purpose of an SLA? An SLA is a tool. Now, a tool is an instrument that you use to help accomplish some task. Like my Ford, I've got to have a special tool to work on the brakes. If I don't, I waste my time in trying to get the thing taken care of. Now, what should SLA be? Well, it should be less about justification. In other words, the process we went through earlier. It should be less about that type of thing. It should be more about information. If the team and managers and techies are a team trying to solve a problem, if the team understands the information and data, it's easier to get it fixed. It's faster to get it fixed. Working together, you can accomplish a lot more. It's an opportunity for education. If you're a techie, do your managers understand what Flutter is? Maybe it's appropriate in your system so that they understand what's going on. You need to be able to give them an education. Managers, you've got to be neutral on the data. You can't be judgmental. What is the data? What am I seeing? Educate me. Tell me what I'm looking at. Tell me why this is important. Tell me why this isn't important. And it's all about communication. That's what an SLA should be. You're working together to solve a problem. Okay, sometimes I feel like this is the kind of data I get when we start talking about SLA. Interesting, but not relevant. So let's go back over those questions from the manager's point of view. Over what period of time? I would love to have a tool that I have the ability to view and analyze systems quickly, change them, be able, hey, has this been going on for a month? This been going on for a year? Was this just something that happened yesterday? If I have the ability to go back and look at different ranges, I can see what the trends are. I can understand, oh, this is a problem we've had for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. We should have handled it differently. What's your check interval? And of course, your question, do you include soft or hard? What's my answer? Look, let's not kid ourselves. Precision is determined by the quality of the input. Okay? What is it? Tell me what it is. Let's have the ability to include things and exclude things so that you convince me that this isn't relevant. Okay, let's take it out so that we can go ahead and look at what the SLA is. Or, no, let's look at this number that's everything, and then let's determine it. So let's not kid ourselves. We need to have good information going in. What's on your exclusion list? Hey, from a manager's point of view, I'm a big boy, I can handle it. Tell me what's going on. Managers, you can't be judgmental other than trying to figure out what the problem is. Techies, you got to give them all of the information. They can't help you. If you come in and say, I've got 5 nines, and it's got so many exclusions, they don't understand what's going on with it. Do you use the average or probability method? Well, my answer to that is they have different purposes. Why can't I see both? Now let's talk a little bit about the architecture, because this is a marriage of an effective tool and architecture. I have a responsibility. My responsibility is an application called buymystuffplease.com. Okay, I'm a manager. I'm responsible for that. What's my primary interest in this? Was there ever a time when people couldn't get to my site? That's what my end responsibility is. So to get that information, I need to have two-way communication. I need to be able to understand what's going on. I need to be able to get raw data about what's happening, what the system is doing, and I need to be able to have it interpreted and output, and I need to put it in a form that everybody understands in my cycle to make this change. If my techie doesn't understand what my manager understands, they're not communicating. So we need to have a common way to look at it. I look at this and I see that my system, my application's been up 100% of the time for the last year. So I say, great, there's nothing more to worry about, right? Right? Well, unfortunately, there is. We look at the process that we have here. Looking at this site, we have kind of coined a phrase that is a specific process rather than just business process, because you have other processes other than business. But the flow is unique in that process. You look at this and you say, maybe I was down. Well, I may have been down because the router was out. Absolutely nothing to do with what my system is doing. Is the network guy didn't do it right. Or I could look at it and say, you know, I actually have a cluster set up in these hosts. I have 6 hosts, 6 nodes with 3 spares. And I'm working right. Everything's coming up. But then I take a look at it and I look at this system and I find out I've got two servers that are sick. They're running at 78%. They're running at 69%. And the other systems are picking it up and taking care of it and pulling it up. Well, as a manager, do I need to look at a capital expenditure? Do I need to replace some servers? Can we calculate it and see if we have 4 systems with 1 spare? What's its probability of being up? I need the data. I need to understand. We got to do something. 5 and 2 work for me. 4 and 1 work for me. No, I've got to buy 2 new servers. How much do they cost? What do we need to do? Now we're making the decisions on what has to be done to keep our system up and running. So we can't just look at the application and say it's been up 100%, so I don't have anything to worry about. Now this is where we're going to talk to you about a tool and turn the time over to Nate.
Can you guys hear me okay? There, yeah, perfect. Anyway, thanks to Dan, there's lots of grandmas that are going to get to the airports here, and that's what's important. Dan and I have been working side by side for a while I'm more of a technical type person, so I like working with the systems, and brought Dan along, and he had this totally different mindset than I did when we brought him in. He thought like a manager. I hated it, you know. But it made sense when he started showing me about how to work with the SLAs and what he was really looking for. As a tech guy, I'm looking for my systems. I want to know if I'm up and running. I want to know my disk space. Is that okay? And am I pingable all the time? Let's see. All right. So the first thing we look at here, the differences between management and techies is, first off, technical people like to see reports that are relevant to them. So we want to see things like memory. We want to see the CPU. We want to see the disk. We want to see what's pertinent to the system. We want to see if the systems are up and running. We care about the individual cluster components that are there. If one goes down, we got to get that back up and running, because that pertains to us. With the manager, they view everything from a top level down. So they like to see their area, and they like to see the region and what's important to the business and what's important to them. So it's a kind of a different mindset in the different companies I've been in. As a technical person, I care about my little area that I see, and a lot of times that can cause friction between management and the tech side. They've assigned me to this area, and the tech guy really doesn't understand why this little component would cost the business $15,000 a second, or $1 million a second. Sometimes they really don't understand that. So what we started doing was we built a tool that will help us find these problems, and it will help us see the different areas of the company that we'd like to see. So this is called SLA Advisor. Oh, don't mind the icons on left. This is called SLA Advisor, and what it allows me to do, I have a tree structure on the left-hand side. So this tree structure is something that comes with the utility. It uses your Nagios groups, but you can configure the groups to in a hierarchical fashion. So for this demo, I just built something really quick, but you can build it by region. So you can build it by company, or USA, and then you have your Utah office, and then you've got area 1, and then you've got floor 1. So you can really break it down. It allows me to do things like this, where I can drill down and see the different components. So for example, here's my websites and the hosts that they're attached to. So we've got aivector.com. Here's one of my clusters that I've set up right here. So you'd have a cluster of 4 servers, and then we'd have some of the networking equipment. So this is a simplified structure, but that's what's important. Just lost my signal right there. There we go. Okay, so there we go. So this structure is important to build the right way, so you can pull the right reports. And a lot of times when you're setting up Nagios, you just create host groups and you're done. You want to pull the reports just for that area, you can do that with this utility. You can have the single host groups. What this allows me to do, and I'll kind of warn you up front, these systems might be a little unhealthy with the demo, but these numbers right here tell me how much downtime that these systems have had. So in this case, we can see that we've got, they've been running perfectly for the last 24 hours. So from a quick search standpoint, I don't see a lot of problems. I can do some other things, like add in the warning times, or I can add in unknowns, and I can add in even scheduled downtime. If I had scheduled downtime, I can pull that out and see the percentages right there. So the tool lets me do that. One of the other nice parts, we'll go ahead and click on services. Well, I can see all the services associated with those hosts right here in a little area. If at any time I want to whittle the data down a little bit, I can always check on the left-hand side, and I can get rid of some of those things that I don't want to see. So those are some nice components. On top of that, if I want to see things that aren't meeting my SLA, well, I can look at everything that's below 98%, and you can see that it shows you exactly what I'm looking for there. A very quick search. So let's go into slides a little bit more. Okay, so with a business process, you need to know what you're building. This is very important. Technical people know all the different components, and you can rattle off about 1 million components right there. But what's important for management is another key thing that we need to understand. There has to be communication between the groups so you can build the right reports, so you can build those right groups together so that management can understand what they're looking at. And that's a really important component right here. The manager is going to take guesses lots of times and say, well, I think the problem was this, and he'll build up this report, but who knows if it's right or not. And I've seen that happen in several companies where they'll pull some graph or diagram up, and so it has absolutely no relevance to the problem that happened. They just wanted to show a graph. And having seen that, we've worked together on this utility to be able to merge the two environments together, to marry them together, because it's very necessary. The tech guys know what they're working on, and the managers know what they're working on as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at this next piece that we've built. Let's see, all right. Okay, it's called SLA status. So this screen, it's got a lot of the same functionality. You've got the nice interface. You can click, choose your own custom dates. On top of that, you can create your own templates. Now, right here it says you need to know your architecture. Yeah, that's a given. This will usually be built in conjunction with the management. So the first one I'm going to build is called an independent SLA item. So what that means is if any one of these items goes down, the whole SLA is impacted. It'll impact the whole SLA for this area. So if I go down and pick, for example, my websites, so I just drag it over, and there it is. Pull up the screen a little bit. And then if I click Save and Display, it'll ask me to give a title. We'll call this the application layer. So these would be my monitors that I'm monitoring my SLA, or these are the monitors that are important for watching the whole system. So that's why I put the websites right there, because if those websites weren't available, they're not meeting my SLA, and those are something that's important to me, and I want to see that. Oh, sorry about the misspelling, but anyway. So it's going to pull that up, and we're able to see it. You're able to see the two websites right there, and we can easily go through and start clicking and seeing how they were doing over time. So you can see further down time, you got the year. So you can see how your different systems are doing over time, and again, it gives you that nice capability, repaints the graph, and also gives you some important numbers right down below, so you can actually see what you're looking at, and you can export these as a PDF to management. So it makes it a really nice utility for that. So let's go ahead and build the next one. We'll do a create a new template. We'll call this one my cluster, or my hardware. We'll call it hardware here. Okay, with the hardware, what we'll do is we'll click cluster, because that's what that's basically designed for. We've got a web server with 4 items in it, which is a cluster. And this uses the SLA equation that says if I've got extra servers or spares, so we'll explain those. There are 4 servers here, and if I change this number to 2, that means that 2 of those servers can go down, and it will still meet my SLA. And that's how the equation plays out. It's an SLA equation for this. So we click Save and Display, and the services on these systems weren't doing too good. Didn't connect one of them on purpose. I wanted to show a few things. So this shows we had some problems on the service level, but from a host level, we're looking really good. From a hardware level, everything was up and pingable right there. So it shows me what I'm looking for. The same capabilities. I mean, you can click any time on any of the filters and go down the list. So the last one, is the combined, and this combines both of them together. Okay, grab network. So I'm going to put my network and websites there because they're single components. And then the web servers is a cluster, so we give it a name. And then it's already got a 2 there. We add the cluster. Actually add the cluster over. I can't see the... and then click Save and Display. Sorry, it's cut off. Anyway, it gives you the same capability. It'll combine everything together so you can see an overall view of the entire system right here. You can see the SLA. You can see the combined systems in the clusters. So what that allows us to do is it brings us to the utility called SLA Advisor. So we don't just want to know what's down. We want to know how we can fix things. We want to know where to sink our money into and resources. As a tech guy, it's always my equipment. Fix my stuff. Give me some more money for it. But as management, you want to be able to you want to look at your money, what's being sunk into it, and that's what this utility allows me to do. So in this case, the servers are looking pretty good over 7 days, but over 90 days, I'm going, well, you know, this one had a few problems, but the probability of them being up is still 100%. I'm okay. But then you look at the services, and you've got some problems there. So management would come to the tech guy and say, well, maybe we could go ahead and we could fix this. Do something about the CPUs, either fix it or put in another CPU. And the numbers themselves will actually update as you go. And it tells you this predictive availability number will increase and will show you what you need to do. So on top of that, you can put in notes. So you can type in, this needs fixing, several lines. So it gives you that full capability. And then you can give this to a manager and show them what to do. So let's go back to here. Okay. So can you click it? All right, well, it's not clicking very well right there. So anyway, we'll get into the tool. So what can the tool do for you? It can save you money. It can let you see where the problems are in the organization. It can also help tech guys communicate with the management. It can help them know what's going on. It can help them see end to end. And if you set up the processes correctly, you can build out this environment that management will be able to go and they'll be able to pull up these reports and show exactly and they'll be able to see exactly what it is that's important to them. So it's a win-win for both the managers and the tech staff. Oh, there we go. So anyway, now it clicks. So a couple technical issues there. We'll go ahead and that's the end of the demo, but we'll go ahead and if you have any questions, we'll go ahead and start taking those.
Just a couple of little things to the presentation. You notice how simply you could make the changes. You notice how quickly you could get between the different what ifs. Well, what if we did this? What if we did this? What if we did this? When Nate and I first got together a couple years ago and we started working together, he got so dang tired of me because I would be around the table saying, okay, this is a nice report. What's it telling me? I don't understand it. Well, and he'd start going into bits and bytes and all of those things. And I'd say, okay, now put that in English for me. I don't understand what you're trying to tell me. With the type of environment that you saw with this tool, it gives both the techie and the manager a common ground to look at that they can understand and that they can see. Now, Nate didn't show it to you, and we won't show it to you on the demo, but this product has the capability to take a problem and drill right down into it and find out exactly what the problem is with a drill down capability. So basically, we're back to the same thing we started with that question, what's the purpose of an SLA? Is the purpose of an SLA to get 5 nines? Okay, as a manager, 5 nines don't mean a darn thing to me. What's the probability of my system being up? I don't need 99.9999% probability that my system is going to be up. I can live with 98% probability that it's going to be up, because that's not an SLA in the average term that we're talking about. It's a probability that my system is going to be up. Hey, I'll live with 98%. Plus, you gave me a report that says if I got a problem, I know what to do. I know I need to replace this. I know I need to do that. It's the idea also that I have the ability to go to my tech guy and say, okay, explain to me, educate me. I want to know what's the difference in. We've got two servers that are having problems, and we've got 3 server spares. Okay, what happens if I go to 5 and 2? What happens if I go to 4 and 1? Do I need to replace it so I can keep? That I have to keep the 6 total nodes? Now we're talking with one another, and it's not. I got a system that's got a 43% whatever. I don't understand that, but now he's telling me no. If we don't replace that system, and we lose it totally, here's what's going to happen. So that kind of gives you an idea of the approach and what we were looking at when we were putting this thing together. So now let's open it up for questions.
We provide managed services, so our SLAs are actually tied to financial penalties. How would this help me to provide availability statistics to my customer to show that I'm actually living up to my SLAs?
You're asking the true definition of an SLA, the service agreement. What do I need to do to be able to produce that? Very simply, you're able to go into the reports, and Nate will correct me if I'm wrong. Very simply, you'll be able to go into the reports, set up those environments that you want as a template, be able then to print them off, showing all of the availabilities, showing pass, showing the thresholds, send them a PDF report at the end of whatever period you want to send it, and they'll see every one of the services, they'll see every one of them, pass, fail, what the percentage of uptime is, and if you're keeping your contract, you're okay. It also gives you the capability, this is a powerful tool, it also gives you the capability to exclude things. If there are certain things in your agreement that are excluded, for example, inbound lines and the performance of inbound lines. Okay? If you can isolate it, you can eliminate that from your SLA. You can say, no, we want this host group, but we don't want this in it. We don't want that in it. And so that you can look at it and you can change the results of the report based on what you're looking at. We have an agreement with them that scheduled downtime is not counted against our SLA. Well, you saw very clearly. We can go in and we can include scheduled downtime, or we can exclude scheduled downtime. So again, it's less about what the number is and more about what we can do with the tool so that everybody's talking and working. And in your case, the SLA having a certain performance is very important. And you can have each customer that you're working with have a separate template. It'd be a separate template. And all you got to do is pull it in and print it.
Yeah, this ties right into Nagios XI as well. So it even adds a little menu item there that you can click on. So from a technical standpoint, anyone can use the utility for themselves, and it also it saves that data when you go in and build the template. So you can pull them up anytime. Interesting question, that one. We talked about that internally. In some ways, it replaces it. You could even pull in the Nagios BPI. If you build a Nagios BPI structure, you can pull it into here. It'll actually use that structure. So
This is an. I got to say it correctly because I know there's different terms. This is an XI component. So what you've done up to this date, you don't throw away. We're not even. In fact, if you do nothing, it will pull in your current architecture from the XI, and you have full access to it. There's a button on there up in the corner that if you want to go to XI and look at something that's specific in their report, you press a button and it automatically puts you in XI.
So you talked about what your measurements were, you know, the 515, the 10110. If we have multiple, if you know we're doing checks, you know, differently for different things, is your tool going and pulling that out and being able to report?
Whatever's, again, he'll correct me if I'm wrong. Whatever is in X. Okay. In essence, what he's asking, if you have multiple check intervals, will it accommodate that? We're looking at the check interval that's set in XI. Okay? So whatever you have set in XI is what we'll pull in and use as the check interval.
yeah, and that goes back to knowing your architecture. So as tech guys, kind of have to talk with the managers right here. What do you expect as an SLA? What's the time that, should I be checking this every minute? Is it okay if we check it every 3 minutes and that still fall within the SLA period? You know, it's all about the architecture and the setup right there.
And the whole idea, again, on the one slide that I had that talked about what this was, the bottom one, it's all about communication. That's what we have developed. If you said, tell me what the summary is of what you just saw, I hope what you go away saying, it's a tool that helps us communicate with one another and come up with the right solution to problems.
So the question was, can it be used as a dashboard and be used in real time? That data right now is real time pulled. So it uses the standard, the Nagios XI databases, pulls from there. The data doesn't refresh automatically, so you'd have to refresh the page if you want to keep it up as a dashboard. We have other utilities that do that sort of thing, though. Making it refresh, we could probably add that in if you wanted to have that as a dashboard.
This is actually a component to a larger product that we have. And what we've done is taken it and divided it out as a standalone. It will be released shortly after November 1st as a standalone item in a product. I'll be honest with you, we haven't set the price yet on it. We are working with it, but what we've decided we will do is anybody that can show that they were here at the conference by either sending us an email now and saying, hi, I saw your presentation and I was at the conference. Any way that you can show us that you were at the conference, we'll give you a 50% discount when it's introduced.
That's what it's designed to do. So it uses kind of a complex one there. For the large environments that we've set up, it definitely will connect multiple Nagios systems to it, and that's actually part of the product right there. As long as the data gets in one spot, as long as you can access that data from one MySQL DB, then you will be able to, however many servers you put in there, how much data you put in, it can access it and pull it from there.
One of the issues is we pull real-time data out of Nagios, out of XI. We store and use the data somewhat differently than the XI does. Things like averaging the data and that type of a thing. We handle it a little bit differently than XI does. One of the things we also want you to understand, we hope you got out of this presentation, is we're not telling you what the best SLA is. I don't know. I know as a manager, I want the average to look at certain things. And I know as a manager, I want the probability, because that's my life. My life is risk management. My life is, can I go another year without spending the $7,000 out of my budget that I need? Well, there's a 6% probability that your system's going to be down. Okay, can I live with 6%? No, I can't. I got to spend the money now. So what we're trying to do is not tell you what the best. I don't know what you can exclude from your SLA. I have no idea. But if you've got an agreement with your customers that you exclude a certain thing, then you want to have the tool that's able to do it.
So we have apparently time for one more question. Go ahead.
You mentioned a couple of times now that if this works with SI, will it also work with Core?
It does, yes. That's part of what we're. That's part of why we're releasing it in just after November, right there. It does have a core installation, a core GUI, and that kind of thing. So pretty exciting. We're excited to get this one out. So.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate the fact that you came in, and we only had to wake 3 of you up during the presentation. So we appreciate that.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, a nice round of applause for Dan Johnson and Nate Broderick.